In this video, we're going to go over some basic PHP syntax. Let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to be working on in this course are called PHP scripts, and they actually sit on a server, unlike the HTML files that we did in the previous course that actually resided on your computer. So for example, with HTML files, we can put them anywhere. We can leave them on your desktop, put them in any folder. It doesn't really matter because your browser automatically pulls them and renders them, and then you see the output on the screen. Now with PHP, it's a little bit different. There's another layer between the scripts that you're creating and what you're seeing in your web page, where they actually sit on what's called a web server, which is the program that I asked you to install last week. All right, so basic PHP syntax. So a PHP script can be placed anywhere in the document. A PHP script starts with an open PHP tag and ends with a closed PHP tag. And this is what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. And I'm just going to call this one something like this. Let's go to File, Save As. And I'm going to say my first script. .php. Don't want to forget that. Okay. This is what an open PHP tag is. Okay. Now, if you're using the Atom text editor, you should see a closing PHP tag automatically created for you. Yay for automation. All right. The default extension for PHP files is .php. If you don't have this extension, then your web browser won't know how to render it properly or to process it. Now, PHP files normally contain HTML tags and some PHP scripting code. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to expand on what we did in the previous course where we're creating everything in HTML, and now we're adding in PHP scripts to make our pages more interactive. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to type up an example of a simple PHP file with a script that uses a built-in function echo to output the text hello world on a web page. All right. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to create some simple doc type and set up the HTML web page here. Okay, so what I've done here is I've just created my HTML page, and at this point I'm just telling my script to say echo, which basically prints out the following information out to a screen, hello world. And then don't forget your closed body tags and closed HTML tags. And then you put those in after your closed PHP tag. There we go. All right, throw another space in there just so it's easier to see. I'm going to go ahead and save my page. And then I'm going to open up my web browser. Hello, Mr. Web Browser, where are you? There he is. I'm going to go to localhost. Click on my folder I want to be in. And then I'm going to click on my first script.php. And it should say hello world. That's the PHP portion of that web page. All right, the next thing we need to talk about are comments in PHP. So a comment in PHP code is a line that is not read or executed as part of the program. Its only purpose is to be read by someone who is looking at the code. In other words, when we run this code on our web server and it renders out with our web browser, we're not going to see these comments. Okay, the only people that will ever see these comments are people who are opening this PHP file for editing purposes or viewing the source code. Okay? Your average person out there clicking on the internet to load this web page is never going to see it. All right, so comments can be used to let others understand what you're doing and remind yourself of what you've done. So most programmers have experienced coming back to their own work a year or two later and having to figure out what they did in the first place. Okay? So comments can remind you of what you were thinking when you wrote the code. And it's very important that you have comments in here, because a lot of times you'll come back and be like, what in the heck was I thinking? Or what in the heck was I doing here? Wait a minute. Why is this particular piece of code written in this way? That doesn't make sense, okay? And if you have comments in there, that'll help you remember where you were, basically. Okay? So there are several ways of commenting. You have single line comments and multi-line comments, okay? And there are several different ways to do this. Let's go over some basics. Your most simple single line comment is just 2 forward slashes followed up by a space, and then whatever it is you want to type in, okay? I'll just say this is a single line comment, okay? Now, another way to do a single line comment that isn't as popular, but you can do it, is to type in pound and then space, and then I'll just type in this is another single line comment. Okay. Multi-line comments usually start with a forward slash star, a new line, usually, okay, and then type in whatever comments you want to put in. Okay, I'm going to say this is a 3-line multi-line comment. Okay, I'm going to say this is line 1, this is line 2, this is line 3. Give myself another space, or another empty space, hit return basically, and then type in star forward slash. Okay, that is a multi-line comment. Okay. You can also use comments to leave out parts of a code line. So, for example, we can do this. Okay. If I wanted to say I had a variable, which we'll cover later, called first name, and my first name is Todd, okay? Now, if I wanted to comment this out, so here's what the variable would look like. First underscore name, Todd, okay? And let's say I wanted to have a different first name called Bob. One way to comment out my code so it's no longer going to be used in this script is just to type in 2 forward slashes, okay, on a single line. So let's say I had something like this. Okay. My total is 10 plus 3. Okay. And I have another one, another total is 10 plus 5. And I'm going to print out total. Oops. There we go. Now, if I have both of these lines of code in here, what PHP is going to do is it's going to take the last one and it's going to print out 15. Let's save this, refresh, and you'll see that it prints out 15. Okay. Now, if I comment out this code, it'll print out 8 because it's no longer, or I'm sorry, 13, 10 plus 3, because it's no longer messing with that second line here because it's been commented out. Okay. All right. Okay. So that, in a nutshell, are comments. The things that you need to remember is that there are 3 major ways to do a comment. 2 that are very much heavily in use. One that some people use, and I don't care if you use it, but it's not what I prefer, and it's not what is normal for most programmers. The top 2 types is a single line comment that's forward slash space, and then whatever you're going to type for that line. Okay. You can have code before it. So, for example, let's see. I'm going to type in my last name is Jameson. Okay. Now, after that, I'm going to put it a comment and say, this is the user's last name. Okay? You'll see that there's a comment there. Now, anything on a single line comment that comes after that // is going to be ignored by the server. Okay? So for example, let's say my last name is Johnson. Okay? You'll see that it's totally ignored. So anything, when you're typing in code and you want to comment on it on a single line, the place to do that is after your code, okay? After the semicolon. Then it's // space, and then whatever your single line comment is. Multi-line comment, pretty much the same way. So let's say, for example, I'm going to say my birth month is July. Okay? If I had a multi-line comment, it would be this. Okay, we'll make it look a little cleaner here for you. Okay. And you can start that multi-line comment right after the code if you want to. It really doesn't matter. Okay. The easiest way is to do it on the next line down. All right, so that, my friend, is the video on PHP Comments. Hope you enjoyed it.